In a small cabin, nestled deep in a mountain valley on a moonless night, the only sound was the ragged whisper of breath. "It's our last night. I don't want it to end," Carol said, her voice trembling in the dark. "That's why I want you so desperately right now," I replied, my own voice thick with an emotion I hadn't felt in years. This was our third night together, and it still felt like a dream. This is even better than yesterday. To think that I, a man of 70, could be so entwined with this beautiful 65-year-old woman. It was a miracle. "Then tonight," she whispered, her words a promise against my skin, "make me completely yours." "I already am," I breathed back. As the night deepened, so did our need for one another. Once wasn't enough. Again and again we came together, as if to reassure ourselves that this was real, that this connection we'd found wasn't just a fleeting illusion. Outside the window, a storm broke, and rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drumming against the roof. How did this happen? How did two people like us find this? It all started 3 days ago, with a sudden summer downpour in that very same valley. Living alone in my sprawling 3,500 square foot house in Chicago felt like being crushed under the weight of silence. It had been 4 years since my husband, John, passed away, and the home that once echoed with life was now just a vast, lonely space. My days were a monotonous blur. I'd sit on the living room sofa, staring blankly at meaningless television shows, the hours just slipping away. The family photos stuck to the refrigerator were like ghosts, mocking me with memories of a happier time. There was John, his smile so full of life. There were the kids, small and laughing. Everything was trapped in the past. My children were busy with their own lives, and the calls became less and less frequent. My eldest daughter, Sarah, lived all the way out in California, and my son, Michael, was always consumed by his work at the firm. "Hi, Mom, just checking in. Hope you're doing well. Things are crazy busy here, so I can't visit much." That was the gist of the calls I'd get, maybe once or twice a month. I noticed I was speaking less and less, even to myself. Some days, the only sound I'd make was a quiet murmur as I moved from room to room. It was on one of those sweltering summer days that my older sister, Margaret, showed up with her husband. "Carol!" she boomed the moment I opened the door. Margaret was a force of nature, always vibrant, always healthy. She and her husband ran a little bed and breakfast in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and being surrounded by people and nature kept her spirit young. "Maggie, what are you doing here?" I asked, my voice thin and unused. "What do you mean?" "I came to see my little sister, of course," she said, her eyes scanning my face with concern. "Good Lord, Carol, you look like you've wasted away to nothing." Her worried gaze swept over my gaunt face. "I'm fine," I managed, forcing a small smile. "I'm just used to it." But I could see in her eyes that my smile only made me look more pitiful. They sat on the sofa in my cavernous living room, gently prying into my life. "So what have you been doing lately?" Margaret asked. "You need a hobby, something to keep you busy." "I just watch TV mostly," I admitted, my voice lacking any energy. Margaret exchanged a look with her husband, then turned back to me, her expression serious. "Carol, I'm worried you're going to fall into a real depression. You can't just stay cooped up in this house all day." "I'm not," I insisted, shaking my head, but there was no conviction in my voice. That's when she started talking about their place in the mountains. She painted a picture of clean, crisp air, the cool water of the creek, and the warm, friendly people who passed through. "You have no idea how good the air is out there," she said, her voice full of passion. "Just listening to the sound of the water is enough to calm your soul." For the first time in a long time, a flicker of interest sparked within me. The truth was, I'd been dreaming of escaping the oppressive weight of the city. You need to clear your head and get your strength back, she urged, her sincerity shining in her eyes. Come stay with us for a while, even just for a few days. Just rest, be in nature. I hesitated. The thought of going to a new place felt exhausting, and the idea of being around people was daunting. But when I looked at the genuine worry in my sister's eyes, my resolve crumbled. Okay, I whispered, nodding slowly. Maybe I'll come for a few days. Margaret's face lit up. Oh, that's wonderful. I promise you'll feel so much better. That evening, for the first time in years, I pulled a suitcase out of the closet. It had been so long since I'd packed for a trip that I could hardly remember what to bring. I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back. A tired, gaunt woman I barely recognized. But deep inside, a tiny seed of hope was beginning to sprout. Maybe, just maybe, this trip could bring a small change to my life. The next morning, I left for the mountains with Margaret and her husband. You got everything? She asked, double-checking. Yes, I said, holding up my small bag. There wasn't much to bring. The drive was long and winding, but the scenery was breathtaking. As the concrete and noise of Chicago faded behind us, I felt the tightness in my chest begin to loosen. The air is different here, isn't it? Margaret said, rolling down her window. It really is, I replied, taking a deep, clean breath. It feels easier to breathe. We arrived at their bed and breakfast as the sun was high in the sky. We're here, Margaret announced cheerfully. The house was perched right beside a rushing creek, and the constant sound of water was a beautiful natural music to ears long accustomed to city noise. After lunch, you should go for a walk along the creek, she suggested. Get some of this fresh air in your lungs. So, I changed into some comfortable clothes and set out on the trail. Felt strange and new to be walking in sneakers again. The creek water was crystal clear and so cold it looked refreshing just to look at it. About halfway down the path, I saw a charming wooden gazebo. It looked like the perfect place to rest for a moment. But as I sat down, the sky suddenly began to darken. Is it going to rain? I wondered aloud, looking up. Just then, a fat raindrop hit my cheek, then another. It was a classic summer shower, coming out of nowhere. I quickly scrambled deeper into the shelter of the gazebo. But I wasn't alone. A man was already there, taking cover from the rain. He looked to be around 70, with silver-white hair combed neatly back, giving him an air of quiet dignity. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, flustered. Not at all, he replied, his voice calm and warm. You're here to get out of the rain, right? There's plenty of room. Please have a seat. I sat down cautiously on the opposite bench. The sound of the rain grew louder, drumming a steady rhythm on the gazebo roof. Would you like some iced tea? The man asked, pulling out a thermos. Oh no, thank you. I'm fine. Please, I made too much to drink by myself. He poured some into a cup and handed it to me. A faint, sweet aroma rose from the tea, and I finally felt myself relax a little. Do you come here often? I asked, my voice still a bit shy. Yes, for my daily walk, he said. I don't believe I've seen you around here before. My sister, Margaret, runs the bed and breakfast down the way. I'm just visiting. Ah, you must be Margaret's sister, he said, a bright smile spreading across his face. It's a pleasure to meet you. There was a genuine warmth in his smile that touched me. You know my sister? Yes, we see each other from time to time. I live alone, you see. In those simple words, I sensed a familiar loneliness. You live alone, too? I said, a statement of shared experience. Yes, he confirmed. I lost my wife 5 years ago. A shadow passed over his features for a moment, and my heart ached for him. I lost my husband 4 years ago. A quiet understanding settled between us. It was a silence that could only be shared by people who had known the same kind of pain. I'm so sorry, he said gently. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. At first, it felt impossible. Even now, sometimes. He didn't press for more, just nodded in silent empathy. The sound of the rain enveloped us, a comforting curtain around our conversation. My name is Robert, he said after a moment. Robert Cole. I'm Carol, I replied. Carol Peterson. That's a lovely name, he said. His simple compliment made a faint blush rise to my cheeks. It had been so long since anyone had said something so kind to me. When the downpour finally stopped, the sky cleared as quickly as it had darkened. Well, I should probably be getting back, I said, standing up. Yes, be careful on the path, Robert said, rising as well. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one last time. He was still standing there in the gazebo watching me go, and for some reason, the sight of him felt strangely poignant. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. And in my dreams, I thought I could hear the warm, gentle sound of Robert's voice. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling surprisingly light. Maggie, I'm going for another walk, I called out. That's a great idea. The morning air is the best, she said, beaming at me from the kitchen. I walked the same path as the day before, a quiet hope fluttering in my chest. I wondered if, by some chance, I might see Robert in the gazebo again. But when I got there, it was empty. I felt a pang of disappointment, but the sheer beauty of the valley was a comfort in itself. It wasn't until later that afternoon, when I went out for another stroll, that I heard a familiar voice. Well, look who it is. I turned around, and there was Robert, a warm smile on his face. Hello, I said, my own smile coming easily. Out for another walk, I see. Yes, the air is just too wonderful to stay inside. I noticed he was holding a small camera. You're a photographer? Just a hobby, he said. I love trying to capture the beauty of this place. Would you mind if I took a picture of you? Of me? I was taken aback. Yes, with a background this beautiful, it would be a shame not to have a souvenir. I hesitated. It had been ages since I'd had my picture taken. Are you sure? Of course. Just stand naturally. At his gentle urging, I stood with the creek and the mountains behind me. Through the lens, I could see the serious, focused look on his face. Now smile, he said softly, and for the first time in what felt like forever, a genuine, unforced smile bloomed on my face. Perfect, he said, his voice full of approval. You look very natural. His praise sent a pleasant warmth through me. After he took a few more shots, we started walking together. There's a little roadside tavern not far from here, he suggested casually. How about a glass of local beer? A tavern? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Yes, they make the best onion rings, and it's got a great, rustic feel. I hesitated for a second. The thought of having a drink with a man I just met felt a little bold. But when I saw his kind, inviting smile, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. All right, The tavern was tucked away upstream, a charming old building with a screened-in porch overlooking the creek. "Welcome," the owner greeted us warmly. "Are you a regular here?" I asked Robert. "I come here sometimes, when I need to clear my head." We found a table with a view of the water. When the beer and a basket of golden brown onion rings arrived, the atmosphere became even more relaxed. "Cheers," Robert said, raising his glass. "Cheers," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. The beer was crisp and slightly bitter, a refreshing taste on a warm afternoon. "So, what do you think?" he asked. "It's been a long time since I've had a beer like this. It's delicious." The onion rings were perfectly crispy and sweet. As we drank, the conversation flowed more easily. "What do you do to pass the time, living alone?" I asked. "I read, take pictures, and go for walks like this," he said. "And you? Don't you get lonely?" "Of course," he admitted with a frankness that I appreciated. "But you get used to it." His honesty resonated with me. "I know what you mean. At first, I thought I'd never survive it." "What about your children?" "They're so busy. They don't call very often. They have their own lives, you know." A note of sadness crept into my voice. "I understand," he said, nodding. "Our kids have to live their own lives." It seemed he was in a similar situation. As we had another beer, our conversation deepened. We talked about memories from our marriages, the profound grief of losing a spouse, and the quiet, empty days that followed. Sometimes, I confessed, I just wish I had someone to talk to like this. "Me too," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "This has been a wonderful afternoon." The sun was beginning to set, and the soft lights of the tavern cast a warm, intimate glow around us. "Goodness, look at the time," I said, surprised at how quickly the hours had passed. "Time flies when you're having fun," Robert said with a smile. "My sister will be worried." "Then let me walk you back." "Oh, you don't have to. I can get back on my own." But he insisted. On the walk back to the bed and breakfast, we walked side by side, our shoulders occasionally brushing. I felt a strange flutter in my chest, a feeling I hadn't experienced in decades. "I really enjoyed today," I said, my voice full of sincerity. "So did I," he replied. "If you have time tomorrow, I'd love to see you again." I hesitated. Part of me desperately wanted to, but the feeling was so new, so unfamiliar. "I'll think about it." "No pressure," he said gently. When we reached Margaret's place, he paused and took my hand. "Thank you for today," he said. His hand was warm and strong, with the pleasant roughness of a man who worked with his hands. I felt my heart skip a beat. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was filled with thoughts of Robert. Was it okay to feel this way? I was confused, torn between guilt and a thrilling sense of excitement. But for the first time in a very long time, I felt truly alive. The next morning, I woke up with a tangle of emotions. My time with Robert felt like a dream, a beautiful, fleeting moment. A wave of guilt washed over me, followed immediately by a surge of excitement. My heart was in turmoil. "Sleep well?" Margaret asked as she prepared breakfast. "Yes, I did," I lied, though my expression must have given me away. She noticed, but thankfully, she didn't press the issue. "Going for another walk today?" I don't know yet," I stammered. I was torn between wanting to see Robert and wanting to run and hide from these new, powerful feelings. It wasn't until late afternoon that I finally ventured out. My steps felt heavy as I made my way toward yesterday's gazebo. When I arrived, It was empty. Of course, he's not here, I mumbled to myself, the disappointment sharper than I'd expected. I sat on the bench, watching the creek flow by, replaying every moment of my conversation with Robert. His warm smile, the gentle tone of his voice, the feel of his calloused hand in mine. It was all so vivid. After a few minutes, I heard footsteps on the path behind me. I was hoping you might come. I turned, and my heart leaped. It was Robert. You were waiting for me? Yes, he admitted, looking a bit shy himself. I enjoyed yesterday so much, I thought I'd take a chance. We were both navigating uncharted territory, and it showed. Well, here I am, I said softly. I'm glad, he said, sitting down beside me, a little closer than before. Did you sleep well last night? He asked gently. I did, I said, then decided on the truth. But I kept thinking about our conversation. A look of relief washed over his face. Me too. We looked at each other and smiled, the awkwardness between us melting away. What would you like to do today? He asked. I don't know. This is all very new to me. For me as well, he confessed. Spending time with someone other than my wife. His honesty created a deep bond between us. We were two souls who understood the same loss. We can just take it slow, he said, his voice reassuring. Yes, I agreed, feeling a sense of calm settle over me. No pressure. That day, we simply walked, exploring the area around the creek. Robert showed me his favorite hidden spots, a quiet pool where the water was perfectly clear, a hillside covered in wildflowers, a grove of trees where the birdsong was like a symphony. This is absolutely beautiful, I breathed, taking it all in. There are places that feel wasted when you're alone, he said. I looked at him then, and in his eyes, I saw years of loneliness and longing. As the sun began to dip below the mountains, we found ourselves back at the gazebo. I had a wonderful time again today, I said. What about tomorrow? He asked, the question coming more easily this time. You want to see me again tomorrow? I'd like that very much, he said, his face lighting up when I nodded. We both knew, without saying it, that we were already looking forward to it. The guilt was fading, replaced by a sweet, thrilling anticipation. On the fourth day, I woke up earlier than usual and took extra care getting ready. I put on a little makeup for the first time in years and chose one of my prettier blouses. Well, don't you look nice today? Margaret exclaimed, surprised. I just felt like it, I said, a blush creeping up my neck. A genuine smile spread across my face. Margaret just watched me, a knowing, happy look in her eyes. It had been a long, long time since she'd seen me with such life in my expression. Meeting Robert had become our new routine. It felt natural to find each other at the gazebo and spend the day together. Where should we go today? I asked. How about a nice dinner tonight? I know a wonderful place that serves classic Southern food. A real dinner? Yes, he said, his eyes twinkling. It's a place I used to go for special occasions. And today feels like a special occasion. His words made my heart flutter. The restaurant was a short drive from the valley, a beautifully restored historic in that oozed charm and elegance. Welcome, the hostess, an older woman with a warm smile, greeted us. You come here often, Robert? I asked. Sometimes, when I need to remember what it feels like. We were led to a private table in a quiet corner, making the evening feel even more intimate. The table was set with crisp linens and gleaming silverware, and I couldn't help but feel a little giddy. This looks amazing, I said as our food arrived. Take your time, he said with a gentle smile. We have all the time in the world. And it was true. There was nowhere else we needed to be, no one else we needed to see. How long did you say you've been on your own? I asked softly. 5 years now. The first 2 were the hardest. I know, I whispered. It felt like nothing mattered anymore. We understood each other's pain without needing to say more. How are you doing now? He asked. A little better, I admitted, especially since coming here. I trailed off, not daring to say it was because of him, but knowing he understood. I feel like something has changed for me too lately, he said. How so? I find myself looking forward to waking up in the morning, he confessed, his gaze steady on mine. Just the thought of seeing someone. His words made my heart race. It was exactly how I felt. Me too, I whispered. Our eyes met across the table, and the air between us crackled with a gentle electricity. Carol, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Yes. Is it too soon to say this? When I'm with you, my heart feels calm. Our hands found each other across the table, his fingers lacing through mine. His touch was warm and reassuring. You're going back to Chicago tomorrow, aren't you? He asked, a note of sadness in his voice. I have one more day, I said. Oh, thank goodness, he breathed, a wave of relief washing over his face. As dinner was ending, Robert spoke again, his voice hesitant. Would you consider staying with me tonight? I was stunned. I hadn't expected that at all. I don't know, I stammered. My heart wanted to say yes, but fear and uncertainty held me back. It's okay if you're not comfortable, he said quickly. I just want to be with you. His raw honesty broke through my hesitation. I made my decision. I want to be with you too. A brilliant smile lit up his face. We drove to his place, a small, cozy cabin not far from the creek. This is where you live? I asked. Yes, it's a little house I have near the valley. The cabin was neat and tidy. As I stepped inside, a wave of nervousness washed over me, but Robert was in no rush. Let me make you some tea, he offered. I watched him as he moved around the small kitchen, his movements calm and deliberate, put me at ease. This smells wonderful, I said, accepting the warm mug. It's my favorite blend, he said. It helps calm the nerves. We sat together on his sofa, looking out the window at the beautiful mountain night. The moonlight is so bright tonight, I murmured. It's a full moon, he said. A perfect full moon. Felt like fate. Carol, he said, turning to face me. Yes. Am I being too forward? He asked, his expression full of concern. I shook my head. No, this is what I want too. With that, he took my hand. His touch was so gentle, so warm. We looked at each other and slowly we leaned closer. His rough, calloused hand came up to cup my cheek. You are so beautiful, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. My heart pounded in my chest. It's been so long since I've felt like this. For me too, he said. Let's just take our time. His lips brushed against my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. The faint scent of my lotion seemed to fill the air around us. I can't wait any longer, he murmured, his breath hot against my skin. My hands, trembling slightly, began to unbutton his shirt. I want to give you all of me, I whispered. His eyes darkened with desire. You've been hiding such a beautiful body. He breathed in awe as he looked at me. My face flushed, but I didn't turn away. Our bodies, our temperatures, our breaths began to merge into one. That night, we gave ourselves to each other completely. It was a night where years of loneliness were washed away by a flood of passion and connection. The next morning, I woke up in Robert's arms. Warm sunlight streamed through the window, dappling the room in gold. He was still asleep, and I watched the peaceful expression on his face, the steady rise and fall of his chest. "You're awake," he murmured, his eyes fluttering open with a smile. "Just now," I said. "Did you sleep well?" "More deeply than I have in years," he answered, his voice content. But as the morning light grew stronger, a sense of sadness began to creep in. I was supposed to go back to Chicago this afternoon. "Should we make some breakfast together?" he suggested. "I'd love that." We prepared a simple meal, the quiet domesticity feeling both strange and wonderful. Eating breakfast while listening to the sound of the creek felt incredibly special. "So, back to Chicago today," he said, his voice heavy with the unspoken question. "Yes, I have to go back." I was just as reluctant as he was. When will you be able to come back?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Margaret is so busy." His face fell. Can I at least call you?" "Of course," I said, a wave of relief washing over me. We exchanged numbers, the act of saving his name in my phone making the impending separation feel painfully real. "Please, let's spend this last day together," he pleaded. "Yes," I agreed, my heart aching. "Let's be together until the very end." That afternoon, Robert had a special idea. "There's a secret place I know," he said. "I want to show it to you." "A secret place?" "Yes, a place I've never shown anyone else," he said, his eyes serious. "I only want to show it to you." My heart swelled. The thought that he wanted to share something so personal with me was deeply moving. He took my hand, and we walked upstream, taking a path that was barely visible. After about 30 minutes, a hidden waterfall came into view. "Oh, Robert," I gasped. It was breathtaking. A beautiful cascade of water dropping about 30 feet into a crystal-clear pool. The sound was like music from another world. "It's so beautiful. I wanted you and only you to see this," he confessed. I was overwhelmed with emotion. "Thank you," I whispered. "I will remember this for the rest of my life." We sat there for a long time, just watching the water, feeling like time had stopped. "Let's take a picture here," Robert said, pulling out his camera. "Let's take one together," I suggested. He beamed, setting the self-timer. We sat side by side, and the camera captured us with the magnificent waterfall as our backdrop. "This picture will be so precious to me," I said. "Me too," he replied. "I'll treasure it forever." As the sun began to set, a heavy sadness settled over us. "I guess we have to go back now," I sighed. "Just a little longer," he said, squeezing my hand tightly. "The thought of you leaving tomorrow, I can't stand it." "I feel the same way." Our hearts were perfectly in sync. The walk back was slow and heavy with unspoken words. Every step, every moment felt precious and fleeting. When we got back to the bed and breakfast, Margaret greeted us warmly. "Oh, Robert, it's good to see you." "Hello, Margaret. I came back with Carol." "I see that. Looks like you two have become good friends," she said with a knowing smile. "Stay for dinner. I've made my famous chicken stew." "Thank you. I'd be honored," Robert said. Margaret already knew him, which made the evening feel even more comfortable. I always thought he was a good man, she'd told me, and he seems to get along so well with you. That evening, as promised, Margaret served a huge pot of her delicious stew. Robert, it's been too long since you've joined us for dinner, she said. Thank you for your hospitality, Margaret. My sister seems a lot brighter these days, she said, giving us a meaningful look. I wonder if it has anything to do with you. I think Carol's company has done me a world of good, too, Robert replied politely. Margaret looked back and forth between us, her face beaming with happiness. It does my heart good to see Carol with so much life in her again. Maggie, I said, feeling my cheeks grow warm. The stew was incredible. The broth was rich and savory, the chicken tender. Margaret, your cooking is truly the best, Robert praised. The four of us, Margaret, her husband, Robert, and I, shared a warm, wonderful meal. Then, suddenly, a low rumble of thunder echoed through the valley. Oh dear, looks like a storm's rolling in, Margaret said, glancing out the window. A moment later, fat raindrops began to splatter against the glass, quickly turned into a torrential downpour. How are you going to get home in this? She asked Robert, concerned. It's all right. I'll just wait for it to let up a bit. But the rain showed no signs of stopping. If anything, it was coming down even harder. You're not going anywhere in this weather, Margaret insisted. You'll stay the night here. Oh, I couldn't impose. Nonsense. It's dangerous to be out on those roads. It's settled. And so Robert ended up staying. I'll get you a separate room, of course, Margaret said, ever the thoughtful hostess. But in our hearts, both Robert and I felt a pang of disappointment. We had both been secretly hoping to spend this last night together. As the night wore on, the storm intensified. Thunder cracked and lightning lit up the sky, as if nature itself was conspiring to keep us from parting. Carol, Margaret said softly, finding me alone in the living room. Yeah, he seems like a really good man, and I can tell you really like him. Her words made me blush. Maggie. No, it's a good thing. You have no idea how happy it makes me to see you like this again. Her blessing warmed my heart. But you have to leave tomorrow. This doesn't have to be the end, she said wisely. You can see each other in Chicago, or he can visit you. She was right. The distance didn't have to be an obstacle. Thanks, Maggie. For what? All I want is for you to be happy. Just then, there was a soft knock on the doorframe. Carol, could I speak with you for a moment? It was Robert's voice. I opened the door cautiously. The storm is so loud. I can't sleep, he said. Me neither. We both felt the same restlessness. It's our last night, he said, his voice full of longing. I want to be with you. I nodded, my heart pounding. Me too. Margaret, with her incredible intuition, quietly made herself scarce. You two can talk as long as you want, she said with a wink. Sleep in tomorrow if you need to. We were both so grateful for her understanding. We were alone in the living room, the sound of the rain a constant, powerful presence around us. So this is really our last night, I said, the words tasting like ash. We can see each other in Chicago. I know, but it won't be like this, I said, and he knew exactly what I meant. A meeting in the city would be different from these magical days in the mountains. We'll still keep in touch, won't we? Often. Yes, of course. As the night deepened, our feelings grew more intense, sharpened by the reality of our imminent separation. Carol, Robert said, taking my hand. Yes. I never thought I'd find something like this again. Me neither, I whispered. It feels like a dream. We just looked at each other, smiling through the ache in our hearts. The storm raged outside, but for us, it was a night destined by fate. Deep in the night, the storm grew even more ferocious. In the living room, our own private world continued to unfold. Tomorrow, we really have to say goodbye, Robert said, his voice heavy with sorrow. These 4 short days had felt more significant than a lifetime. Robert, I began, my voice trembling slightly. Is it okay if I say something? Anything, Carol. Tell me anything. I think I'm falling in love with you. His eyes, already so kind, seemed to glow. Oh, Carol, he breathed. I'm in love with you, too. It was the first time we had spoken the words. A love story for a 65-year-old and a 70-year-old. It may have come late in life, but it burned with an intensity that could rival any youthful romance. Robert framed my face with his hands. I never thought I could love someone like this again. Me neither, I confessed. After John was gone, I thought that part of my life was over. Our lips met in a kiss that was deep and desperate, a kiss that poured years of loneliness into a single moment of connection. Tonight is our last night, he whispered against my mouth. Yes, I agreed. Let's have no regrets. He took my hand. Come to my room. We moved silently through the quiet house. Once the door was closed behind us, the world shrank to just the 2 of us. It's our last night. I don't want it to end, I said, my voice trembling. That's why I want you so desperately right now, he replied, sitting me on the edge of the bed. I have to let you go tomorrow, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I reached up and cupped his face in my hands. His own hands traced the line of my shoulders, his touch sending shivers through me. Then tonight, I whispered, make me completely yours. I already am, he breathed back. We began to undress each other slowly, as if unwrapping a precious gift, our movements filled with a tender, aching reverence. I've done nothing but think about you since yesterday, he said, his breath coming in ragged gasps. My cheeks flushed. I was embarrassed, but with you, it feels right. All day, I wondered if we would ever be able to do this again. He gently laid me back on the bed. The storm raged outside, but inside that room, there was only us. A brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the sky, a silent, powerful blessing on our union. We made love with a passion that was both fierce and tender, fueled by the desperation of our impending farewell. Afterward, we lay tangled in each other's arms, our breathing slowly returning to normal. That was even better than yesterday, I whispered, my face buried in the warmth of his chest. I know, he said. I can't believe this is real. As the night wore on, our need for each other only grew. Once wasn't enough. Again and again we came together, as if to brand the memory of this night onto our very souls. I don't want the morning to come, I sighed. Me neither. I wish we could stop time. But time, indifferent to our wishes, moved on. The rain softened, the sky began to lighten, and the first birds began to sing. We should get up, Robert said reluctantly. Just a little longer, I pleaded, not wanting to leave the circle of his arms. But we knew we had to return to our own rooms before Margaret woke up. I will never forget this night, I said. I'll remember it for the rest of my life, he promised. I slipped quietly back to my room, my entire body humming with the memory of our night together. Robert's warmth, his ragged breaths, his desperate whispers. Every detail was seared into my mind. At breakfast, we acted as if nothing had happened, but the look in our eyes told a different story. "Sleep well?" Margaret asked. "Yes, thank you," Robert replied politely. My sister, bless her heart, noticed the change in us but pretended she didn't. "So, you're heading back to Chicago this afternoon?" she asked me. "Yes, my bus leaves at 3. There wasn't much time left." "Well, you'll have lunch before you go," she insisted. Robert and I spent our last few hours trying to savor every second. We took one final walk along the creek, stopping at the gazebo where we first met. "This is where it all started," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "In a sudden downpour," he remembered. "I had no idea then what was about to happen." "Me neither. It must have been fate." We stood there for a long time, in the place where it began, preparing for where it would end. After a final, delicious lunch prepared by Margaret, it was time to go. "Come visit again soon," she said to Robert. "I will, I promise. And please, take good care of my sister." Robert nodded seriously at her words. He insisted on walking with me to the bus station. "Maggie," I said, hugging my sister tightly, "thank you for these 4 days. It was a wonderful time. Of course, the mountain air did you good, didn't it? Come back soon." The walk to the station was silent. There were no words that could possibly capture everything we were feeling. "Carol," Robert finally said as we stood waiting. "Yes. I'm going to come to Chicago." "Really?" I asked, my heart soaring. "Yes, wait for me." "I will," I promised. The bus pulled up, and our time was up. "I'll call you," he said. "I'll be waiting." We shared one last, tight embrace. I got on the bus and waved from the window. Robert stood there, waving back, until the bus turned a corner and he was out of sight. The entire ride back to Chicago, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Sadness, hope, and the undeniable certainty that I was no longer the same person who had left just 4 days ago. The first thing I did when I got home was call him. "I'm back safely." "Thank God," he said, his voice full of relief. "I miss you already." "I miss you too." From that day on, we talked constantly. We called every day, sent texts, and even figured out how to video chat. 2 weeks later, Robert came to Chicago. "You really came," I said, overjoyed. "I promised, didn't I?" He stayed in a hotel nearby, and we spent the week exploring my city together. It was just as sweet as our time in the mountains. We walked along the shore of Lake Michigan, ate at wonderful restaurants, and even went to a movie. "Chicago isn't so bad," he said with a smile. "Anywhere is wonderful, as long as I'm with you." We made a promise to see each other once a month. Sometimes he would come to Chicago, and sometimes I would go to the mountains. With every meeting, our love grew deeper. 6 months later, Robert asked me a very important question. "Carol, will you come live with me?" "Live with you?" "Yes. Whether it's in the mountains or here in Chicago, I just want to be with you." I hesitated. It was a huge decision. "What will the kids say?" "They'll want you to be happy," he said, and he was right. I told my children, and to my relief, they were completely supportive of my happiness. A year after we met, I moved. We found a small house near the valley and started our new life together. Every morning we walk along the creek, and every afternoon we sit and have tea. Sometimes we travel to see our children. "Mom, you look so happy," my daughter Sarah told me on our last visit. I am, I said, smiling. Robert takes very good care of me. 2 years have passed, and we are still deeply in love. Every evening we hold hands and walk by the creek, and we often talk about how we met. What do you think would have happened if it hadn't rained that day? I asked him once. We would have found each other some other way, he said with absolute certainty. It was destiny. I smiled because I knew he was right. Our love came late in life, but that only makes it more precious. We are living proof that you can love again, that the pain of loss can be healed by a new beginning. There's no age limit on love, I said, squeezing his hand. That's right, he agreed. As long as your heart is young, it's never too late to start. Like the creek that flows endlessly through the valley, our love will continue to flow forever. It was a love found in the twilight of our lives, but it shines more brightly and truly than any other love I have ever known. It is a story of hope for all the lonely hearts in the world, a beautiful reminder that love is always, always possible.